Hello, everybody. Welcome to Finding Brave this week. I feel like I've been gone from you for weeks. I haven't, but I think you probably know I've been on the road, Italy, Ireland, Atlanta, speaking at the Network of Executive Women, and Maine to celebrate my, speaking of grown children who we adore, my 25-year-old daughter just turned 25, celebrating that with the family in Maine. So I feel like I've been away 100 years, but I missed you. But thank you for being here. And I am so excited to have as our guest Dr. Tim Elmore. And boy, we have a wonderful history, I think, Tim, don't we? I
Yeah, we
just want,
do.
I want to share. I know you know the story a million times, but I'd like our listeners to know how we connect, how I connect with these amazing guests, and why they even take the time to talk to me. But it was so. I think our post in Forbes was 2014, and a few months before I reached out, a course member said, "Hey, do you all know of Dr. Tim Elmore?" And I had not. And I went to your site, Growing Leaders, and I'm going to read Tim's bio. Unbelievable. And I said, I love every word that you're teaching. And I literally choke up when you speak. And I think it's because why? You speak in a way that so understands human nature and people and young people. And you speak about them so lovingly, yet there's a firm guiding hand. And we're going to talk about the difference between guiding and other things,
Uh,
but you have such a unique voice, Tim. But we did a post, 7 crippling parenting behaviors that keep children from growing into leaders. We're now over 8 million views there.
wow.
The most viral post. And I still refer to it. So it's, 5 years old, but every word is, I think, timeless. So that's it. And we've done other things. We've talked
Wow.
on the podcast before in my previous podcast. So thank you for being here and
Oh,
taking the time.
Kathy, I'm honored. You are a hero to me. I love your work, and I'm glad you're doing it, and I don't want you to retire. That's what I'm telling you right
Okay. Yes,
now.
sir. I gotcha. I don't want to retire for a long time. I don't believe in
There you go.
retirement. All right. Everyone, let me tell you about Tim before we launch in. And what we're talking about is Generation Z Unfiltered, helping them address the 9 hidden challenges of the most anxious generation. Yikes. So, Dr. Tim Elmore is a best-selling author and international speaker who equips educators, coaches, leaders, and parents of Generation Y and Z. This floors me. He has authored more than 30 books. You're just a ninja, an author ninja, and trained thousands of leaders in nationally renowned organizations like the Nebraska Department of Education, the National FFA Organization, University of Alabama Athletic Department. You work with so many student athletes, the Ohio State University, and Chick-fil-A. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. And you have your new book coming out this week. So you're not sleeping. I can tell that, I'm sure. So let us start. What is Generation Z? What are their ages? What's their biggest challenge? Tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, Generation Z represents the newest, youngest population that we're measuring today. So you remember, we've been talking about the millennials for 15 or 20
Right.
years now. Well, the millennials are now no longer students. They're out in their profession. So they would be probably
Crazy.
the youngest employees that most companies would have. But Generation Z represents the population of kids that really essentially have grown up in the 21st century.
I see.
So their lives began with the dot-com era bubble bursting,
Good
with
grief.
September 11th, 2001 happening. And by the way, since that time, they've grown up in a world of terrorism. There's been 26,000 other terrorist attacks going on somewhere in the world. So their thinking is somewhere in the world, somebody's getting blown up right now. It just feels that way. And even though that may not be true, it just feels school shootings. You can imagine. So Generation Z is a different population that's grown up in a different time. And they're really, in many ways, reacting to the millennial generation, which are the young adults before them. And by the way, some of the millennials have given birth to Generation Z. So they're the
Wow.
mom and dad. So that would be what I
Wow.
would say represents Gen Z.
Let me even understand this. So we are all a reaction to generations that came before. We've talked about
Yes.
this. My dad, passed away.
Yeah.
He would have been 94, but, depression, World War II,
Yes.
and generations have themes. And, when you
Yeah.
talk about having been born in 2000 and beyond, there's an
Yeah.
energy of a time period, isn't there?
Yes.
And
Yes, there is.
you were talking about this. It's kind of like the death of innocence, it seems, right now, this
Yeah,
generation. Is
yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's in many ways it is. In fact, my theory, Kathy, is that adolescence is expanding on both sides.
Oh, what do you
Kids are
mean?
entering into adolescence having been exposed to adult information at 7 or 8 years old on Wi-Fi, on the internet, and yet they're often staying in adolescence well into their 20s. Many
What a
employers will
weird,
go,
what a weird
yeah, it is weird.
pattern. I mean,
Yeah,
weirdly unusual. They're
yeah,
in
but
a way they're forced to grow up more quickly just
yes,
by what the information they're exposed to, but yet
right.
we're not giving them the tools.
That's exactly right. So they're cognitively advanced, biologically advanced. These athletes are specimens today. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And yet maybe socially and emotionally behind because we've not given them the tools for career readiness, perhaps, or life readiness. So that's what we're after at Growing Leaders.
Now tell us, you have so many, even everyone look behind Tim. You work with habitudes, which are images that help evoke learning in a different way than you just standing there teaching. We're going to
Yes.
talk about a
Yeah.
few of those, but can you tell us in your book, what would you say the absolute most important lesson? And your book is for those of us who shape and guide and parent and teach. And I have to just tell everyone, do you know Esther? And please forgive I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly. Is it Wojcicki? She's a renowned educator and a parent of three
Yeah.
phenomenally successful daughters. I just interviewed her in Forbes. I think you would love every word of what she's
Yeah.
saying that she has done with her own children and her teaching. Do you know her work?
I do. Well, I've read an article that she did, and you're absolutely right. I was impressed with the way she raised her kids to be
Wow.
ready for thriving, not surviving.
And
Yeah.
just quickly, and I'm sure this is exactly what you teach, she calls it trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. But like at age 5, she was asking them how do they want to decorate their rooms, and pink shag it was. Oh gosh, we
Yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
what is it that we need to do differently, Tim? And I'm thinking we want to help mitigate the anxiety or deal with it. What do we need to do? What do we need to understand?
Yeah. So this will not be a newsflash to listeners, but mental health is the biggest issue that Gen Z would be facing today. And I don't think it's just because it's a stressful world, because most moms and dads would say, well, sweetheart, welcome to life. Life is a little stressful.
And
I mean,
World
that's
War II and Depression era, I
yeah,
don't have, we're going to war and legs are being blown off, It,
yeah. So
there were
lots
not
of that
easy times.
forever. But the mental health issues are, I think, growing for a number of reasons. One, it is a stressful time. Number two, these kids are growing up with social media. And while I don't think social media is evil or wicked, these kids, if they're on social media, are being bombarded by as much as 10,000 messages a day. I don't think our brains are meant to take in 10,000 messages a day. So minimally, they're just overwhelmed. In fact, in the latest research I just uncovered, Kathy, the number one word that college students use to describe their life is the word overwhelmed. 44% say I'm so overwhelmed it's difficult to function. So this would be
I think we can relate. I think
yeah, absolutely.
I'm,
Welcome to life. Yeah.
upper 50, 59. Why am I hiding that number? I'm overwhelmed.
Yes.
And can we talk about, because, trained therapist here, I think there's so many levels of overwhelm. One is the brain processing it. Two, the fear of missing out. Three, the judgment. I know, even my kids and when I put a post up, I'm looking at who's responding.
Yes.
Is there a response? If I do a Forbes post and it gets one view, I failed.
Yeah.
So there's the judging and the comparing.
No doubt. Yeah.
And then,
in fact,
go ahead.
Well, I'm so sorry, Kathy. You and I are both wanting to say something here. I think you're right. Fear of missing out, FOMO. I'm hearing FOBO, fear of being offline. So they're anxious when they are online because they're looking at all that they're missing, but they're often anxious when they're offline because they're wondering what's going on. Oh my gosh, my Snapchat streak I'm missing it now. And then, you know what I'm hearing high school kids say? FOMU, F-O-M-U, fear of messing up.
On
Fear of
social media or in general?
well, or just in general. Failure is the best way I learned. You would probably agree with it.
Uh,
I learn the
uh,
most when I
I
fail.
wouldn't
I
be
don't
who I
like it, but
am. Yeah,
yeah.
without it.
But kids today, because everything's posted,
And
think about it. If
public.
you're in the cafeteria and you're in middle school and you drop your lunch tray, 20 years ago, oh, just the people that saw it would laugh and it would go, and then it would go away. Today, someone captures it on their phone, posts it. Now you're the bonehead for the next several months,
Oh, it's
and
horrible.
the bullying doesn't go away. So it is a different world, and I think the kids feel that day in and day out. Yeah.
I was driving home from Maine 6 hours, and I heard 3 different radio stations say something like, you probably know this number. Don't quote me, folks. We'll find it. Something like 65% of all adults wish iPhones weren't invented.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
But would they give them up? Heck no.
That's right.
It's like we've got an addiction that we're not going to give
Yeah.
up. Oh, it's rough. So now what are we to do
Yeah.
here?
No doubt about it.
How do
Gen
we
Z,
raise, how do
um,
we nurture? And will you tell us a little bit about guide versus guard? Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, this book was really birthed more than a year ago. We partnered with the Harris Poll, and we just wanted to collect some data based on a hunch that I had. I was meeting with parents, with coaches, with educators, with employers, all who work with the emerging generation. And I was seeing attitudes that I knew were harmful, but they weren't meant to be harmful. We get frustrated, we get fearful for these children. So
Oh, you
we
mean
surveyed.
parenting attitudes?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Parenting attitudes.
Oh boy.
So bottom line, we discovered that 66% of American adults have a negative emotion when they think about today's kids, Generation Z kids. I'm concerned, I'm afraid for them, I'm frustrated with them. So think about that. 66, that's 2 out of every 3.
What do you have the same data point for parents of other generations? Or are parents
No,
just
I
negative
don't.
people?
I don't personally, but here's what I would say. I would say almost every generation of parents
Yeah.
since Socrates probably has been frustrated with these lazy, apathetic children.
Right.
But today we've moved to, you've probably heard this term, a lawnmower style of parenting, where we're mowing down anything that might be in the way of my child's perks and benefits that they deserve, So instead of teaching our children, sweetheart, you need to talk to your teacher and negotiate that grade or navigate that, that assignment. We'll go in and do it for them. And so
we talked about this, and this is part of why that post went viral 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a guess after you, but why do you think the lawnmower has come into being? What happened?
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things, Kathy, and I'll try to be brief here. I think it actually started in the 1980s. Do you remember a man by the name of John Walsh? He had a son named Adam who was abducted, kidnapped, and eventually his body was found in Florida. And it was an atrocious, horrible, worst nightmare for any parent.
Oh my God, no.
But Mr. Walsh went on a campaign after that. He started a nonprofit that eventually led to the Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. He's the one that started the pictures of children on milk cartons that have been missing,
Right.
and then we're pouring that milk on our. Yes, and we're thinking this could be my child. America's Most Wanted, the television show, he started that. He launched.
Did?
Yeah. So his intention was, may children never be abducted again. That's a good thing. The unintended consequence was we just began on this path of fear and worry and, extra worry, extra fear, probably more than we should be afraid. It feels like we're in a horrible, horrible. Well, Kathy, you and I both know people are not all horrible. There's some great people. Most people are not bad, but we sure think that they might be. So think about this. If the narrative in our mind as a leader or as a parent is fear and concern, and I don't think you're going to make it, I just don't think that produces a good outcome in these young adults when it's time to be a grown-up. So that's one of the big messages.
I love what you're saying because it's accurate, but I'm going to add one other thing.
Okay.
I think that in my parents' era, they were busy with their own lives, hacking it out.
Yes.
And so it was go play. I've mentioned this a million times. Mom, I'm bored. Go read a book. That was what she would say. Go read a book. Go outside. There was no helping of me
Yes.
figure
Yeah.
out. And in some ways, I have to say, I felt a little alone in big challenges, like when they drove away after I graduated from Boston
Yeah.
U and I'm on my own. That's it. You're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember being very overwhelmed, and I didn't want my kids to feel that. But I was
Yeah.
very resourceful. There was
Yeah.
no one else and my mom hadn't gone to college, so I had to, and dad was Phi Beta Kappa brilliant, but they let me fill out my college applications. I
Yeah.
won an award, fill it out. I don't know what you're doing. I think the lawnmower piece that I think is even more damaging is we are so anxious
Yeah.
that
That's
we
exactly right.
actually don't even believe in ourselves, and therefore we don't believe in our children.
Yeah.
And that is what we do. Let me take care of it. Let me fix your C or your F. Let me
Yeah.
talk to the coach after he dumped you from the
Yes.
team,
Yes. Yeah.
because we don't really believe our kids can do it because we don't have any belief in ourselves either. What do you think?
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. In fact, can I volley back with an
Please.
illustration of what you're saying?
Yeah.
So one of the bits of data in this new Generation Z book is has to do with the measurement of their locus of control. So way back in 1954, research began to come out by Dr. Julian Rotter, and he started measuring university students' locus of control. Now, in
That
layman's
means
terms,
how much they feel they can control. Yeah?
yes, that's right. So
Okay.
if you're an internal locus of control person, you feel like you're in charge and you're responsible for your own success. It's what every parent wants to drill into
Right.
their child.
Right.
If you're an external locus of control person, you're a person that believes that somehow fate or external forces govern and control your outcomes. Now, the fact of the matter is it's a little of both for sure, but every parent wants their child to say, sweetheart, be responsible. You take charge. By 1963, 9 years into his original research, Dr. Rotter had concluded that those with an internal locus are measurably more successful in life. They take better care of their health, their careers, their marriages, etc. Now, here's why I bring this up. There's been a slow rise over the decades in external locus. And by the way, Kathy, since 2002, so Gen Z, there's been a steep climb in external locus of control. And I think part of it is parents have jumped in and been the lawnmower, and kids go, okay, mom, you do it for me.
Because I
When really,
can't.
mom, yes. And I think we need to say, sweetheart, I believe in you. I could do this for sure, but you can tie your shoe at 5 years old. You can take out the trash at 8 years old. You can fill out the college application at 17 years old. And I feel like
Wow.
this is so simplistic, but I feel like we need to do more empowering than doing it for them and being Superman or Superwoman as mom and dad.
Golly. That external internal locus reminds
Yeah.
me of optimism and pessimism. Whereas
Mhm.
optimism is, yeah, I see the challenges with my eyes wide open, but I feel it's going to work out. I have the
Yeah.
resources to work it out.
Yeah.
The pessimist is, it's all against me, forget it.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
if they're related. Oh, wow.
I bet they are. I bet they are. I feel like mom and dad built into me an internal locus. I may get down for a day if I have a bad loss, but the next day I go, I'm going to beat this. And I know you're that way too. That's how you've lived your
In
life.
fact, the
Finding
challenge
faith.
makes me go,
Yeah.
you think I
Yeah.
can't do this?
Yeah.
Watch
Yeah.
me. Oh,
Yeah.
I wonder if some of
Yeah.
it is genetic in ways that we don't even understand how we're
Yeah, it
wired.
probably is.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be fair with ourselves and graceful with ourselves. But what leader, whether they're an employer or a mom, ought not to say, I'm going to build as much as I can an internal locus inside of these people around me.
I
Yeah.
love it. So
Yeah.
how do we do it? What do we do?
Well, let me cover a couple of thoughts here.
Great.
In the Gen Z book, we offer a bit of a step-by-step process. I love the word prove.
Prove.
Let's let them prove themselves. So it's PROVE. This is an acronym that reminds me of 5 elements that every young person growing up in the 21st century best connects with to learn and grow. Okay. So
Wow.
the letter P stands for problem. I think our educating or training of kids shouldn't start with curriculum. It should start with a problem that needs to be solved.
Wow.
What would incentivize them more that I'm actually solving this clean water problem in Africa, or this human trafficking problem in Asia, or whatever? Maybe it's a local pond that needs to be cleaned up in their community. But I think a kid gets charged up because they're learning just in time, not just in case. And most of our teaching is just in case you'll need this algebraic
Brilliant.
equation.
And it's also giving real life application. What kid have you
Yeah.
how many times have you heard, why do I need to know this? I don't see
Yes.
how I'm going to apply it.
Yeah.
I love it.
People learn on a need to know basis, and kids really learn on a need to know
Wow.
basis. So as a mom, you probably thought, I told you last week. Yeah, but I didn't need to know last week. Tell me now, you know.
I'm kind of like that because I'm
Yes.
overwhelmed. I'm like, I didn't
know.
learn. I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Yeah.
Now I need
So
it. I love it.
Yep.
What's R?
So that's the letter P, problem.
Okay.
Start with a problem that needs to be solved. The letter R is relationship. Now, I know this is intuitive for you, Kathy, because you're so good with relationships. I think in many ways, employers, educators fail to really build genuine, authentic relationships with a learner. Can I just say something that's probably oversimplistic, but it's based off our data. Kids learn better from a person that they think actually likes them.
My gosh.
So I'm getting teary right now because I can think of Mrs. Mayo, my fourth grade teacher. She liked me and I liked her, and I would go through a wall for her. Why? Was she the best teacher? Probably not, but she loved me. And so
did she love everyone like that?
Yes. Yeah. But I thought I was her favorite. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And so I think we need to love that way, as whether we're parents or employers. I love to use this phrase. Maybe, Kathy, I said this one other time on your podcast, but the phrase I love to use is, we must build bridges of relationship that can bear the weight of truth, sometimes hard truth. And that's what I'm after on this one with Gen Z. So,
and I want to tell you, Esther's talks about teachers are so overwhelmed themselves. There's very little relationship. They don't understand what makes the child tick. They don't understand their family life. And when you create that, you create a culture of embracing, and acceptance.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
so good.
That's letter O. The letter O, improve, is ownership. We have got to help these young people practice metacognition, which means they own how they're going to solve the problem, how they're going to learn the concept. I heard a professor say something brilliant recently. She said, I'm never again going to teach something that they can look up on Google. Isn't that brilliant?
Wow.
So, I mean, we're still, just giving lectures and the kids are writing it down, but they're going, I could look that one up. So what if we really said, I'm going to let you own this problem. You're going to practice what educators call metacognition. You're going to think about your thinking. You're going to process how you're going to get to the answer. I think kids learn better this way. In fact, do you mind? I'm going to do this quick. I want to share you a great story on how an educator did this.
Please.
Julie Diaz is just recently retired in Houston, Texas as a principal, but she was meeting with some students on a regular basis, mentoring them, which I love, by the way, a principal meeting with her high school students. Wow. And she said, kids, what do you think our school really needs? Well, that was a broad question. And they said, well, our school is so drab. Drab is the word they use. Look at the walls. The walls were beige and brown. And she goes, they all go, why are they beige and brown? Our school colors are red and black. Why don't we paint our school? And Julie said, well, kids, thank you for the suggestion. Let me check the budget. She checks the budget. And of course, there's no extra money for painting a school. So she comes back and says, we're not going to be able to do it this year. They leaned in and said, Miss Diaz, could we do it? Could we take on this project? And I'm so glad she said yes. Wow. What they did was something only kids could do.
What did they do?
They immediately marched down to the Sherwin-Williams store in town and got $1,500 worth of paint donated.
What?
Kids can do what we can't, right? They're cute. We're not. So yeah, that's true.
Oh
but $1,500 wasn't enough.
Oh.
So they had to do some fundraisers to raise the rest of the money for the brushes and the extra paint. When they finally get all that together, Julie lets them get on the intercom, and the students go, we need 200 painters over the next couple of Saturdays to come in. They rounded up student painters, and within a Saturday, they painted the school. I walked through it last year. It looks beautiful.
Oh, they
and
did
what
it
I love
beautifully?
Oh, yes. I mean, they did beautiful. In fact, you know what the deal was, though? She let them own it. If you let them own it, they're doing a great job.
They have pride in it. They're right.
Yes. So much so, Kathy, you're going to love this, that when I was with these students walking down the hall, I was pointing out how good it was. And I saw the students getting on each other for bumping up against the wall and scratching the paint. That sounds like my father, But
Wow.
that's ownership.
Yeah. And you know what I have to say that I love more than anything in that story, it wasn't her idea that they
Yes,
own it. It was theirs, right?
absolutely. That's key. That's the ownership piece.
Oh,
So real
God,
quick,
what
the letter
happened?
V, I know we're short on time.
Oh,
The
yeah.
letter V is visuals. You know, I'm a lover of images.
Right.
So
Right.
I think we need to leverage their natural language, which is imagery, emojis, bitmojis, uh,
Wow.
GIFs, you know, everywhere we look, Instagram, it's pictures. So how are we leveraging images? You know,
Yeah.
I've got
Tell
behind
us
me.
what this means. Tell us so we
Okay.
know what we're seeing.
So listeners, this is an image that we teach focus about, and it's called rivers and floods.
Mm.
If you stop and think about it, rivers and floods are both bodies of water. Floods are water going in every direction and doing damage. Rivers, on the other hand, are flowing in one direction, and you
Mm.
can leverage them to do a lot of good. So we say, are you being a river or flood? River or
Wow.
flood? Well, that's a good discussion on focus, but it's a lot more fun because it's an image-rich one.
Wow.
This is one called the bit market, and it reminds young leaders that you drill a hole in a piece of wood through a drill bit, but you got to keep your eye on the hole and ask yourself, is this the very best way to make a hole? One day drill bits may be gone. We may find out a laser way to make a hole in a piece of wood or whatever.
Wow. Wow.
So we're just telling about focus on outcomes, not just inputs.
Oh.
Anyway, it's just a way of teaching something that they need to know, but it's more fun. And because pictures are worth 1,000 words, it's more engaging. So that's the
And
visual part.
can you give that visual of the guide and the guard, Tim?
Oh, yes. This is Kathy Caprino's favorite image now, I think. So one of our newest images, we've started some great discussions with students lately. It's called guard dogs or guide dogs.
Mm.
And the images of a blind person walking with a guide dog. Think about guard dogs and guide dogs for just a second. These are the two most popular jobs that we give to canines, but their jobs are very, very different. A guard dog, they're the ones that are growling, barking, sniffing out. They're suspicious of anybody, and their job is to protect. The guide dog, oh my gosh, very different. They're going first. They're being vulnerable, taking initiative. Their job is to partner. So one is to protect, the other is to partner. I think our
Wow.
amygdala in our brains always makes us lean toward protecting. We're self-protecting. We don't share too much. We don't get too vulnerable. And I'm saying we've got to be guide dogs for groups that we're in. We've got to lean in, maybe take initiative and say, let me share a struggle I'm having. Could I be vulnerable first? We have found that if we'll lead with vulnerability, moms and dads listening, if you'll lead with vulnerability, you'll get such genuine responses back.
I
But
love
yeah,
that.
the guide
That
dogs right
image
now.
can be a whole day workshop. You know, when I see
Yeah,
the guide dog, I think because of
yeah,
you, you're giving me the feeling that I can stretch beyond my boundary and that it'll be safe to do it. Well,
yeah.
that's what we're trying to teach.
Yes,
Oh, I
absolutely.
love
You and I
it.
both believe this, Kathy. This is what you've been teaching for years on finding brave.
That's
We've
it.
got to go first and be vulnerable. So anyway, it's just an image
It's
rich way
fantastic.
to say that. Yeah.
I so
So
love it.
okay,
And
the
what
last
about
letter
E
is
now?
yes, the last letter is experience.
Mhm.
I believe that kids today are experiential. Maybe kids in every day have always been experiential, but instead of a talking head up front of a classroom or dad's lecture at the house, what if we started with experiences that we debriefed about later? So in our home with our kids growing up, we went down to Safe House Outreach in Atlanta, Georgia, and we fed homeless people. It
Wow.
was so good for us. I hope it was good for them too. But boy, do we have great conversations based on the experience of how grateful we are for what we have, how hard some people have it right now, and is there a way to build some equity in our life here in Atlanta? But it was much better than my talk on that
Oh,
subject.
yeah.
So I suggest listeners practice prove problems, relationships, ownership, visuals, and lots of experiences. I think that's how we get to the next generation.
Oh, it's so fantastic. I mean, I think, let me just summarize that. I think if you're a parent or a leader or a manager or working with anybody, engaging in this is actually going to change you as well because it
Yeah,
stresses you as a parent or a leader to think and fear that you have to fix everything.
yeah,
You're really mucking it up because you're not fixing anything and you're just
that's right.
making everybody hysterical and anxious
Yeah,
and
it's
believe that they don't have it in themselves to deal with the challenges for today. So who wouldn't benefit from this prove methodology? I love it, Tim. Any last words? And tell us where we can learn more about you and where we get the book. And of course, we'll link below. Tell us everything.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the book is called Generation Z Unfiltered, Facing 9 Hidden Challenges of the Most Anxious Population. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on generationzunfiltered.com.
Wow.
You
Great.
can go to growingleaders.com/Generation Z Unfiltered and get the book, and it's all discounted. We try to match Amazon prices, so that's good. The
Wonderful.
last thing I would like to say, Kathy,
Please.
is a very timely comment. Over the last year, if we've been watching the news, we've been following the college entrance scandal that's gone on with some parents who have just unwittingly gotten into trouble because they were paying some money to a broker to get their kid into Georgetown or USC or UCLA or whatever, a college of choice.
Right.
If you remember recently, Felicity Huffman, one of the celebrities that was sentenced to some jail time and community service, she said in an interview something I will never forget. She said, yes, the sentencing was hard. It was embarrassing. I'm ashamed. But she said, the hardest part for me was looking at my daughter's face with tears coming down her cheek as she said to me as her mother, why didn't you believe in me?
Good grief.
Why didn't you think I could do this on my own? And I'm thinking that's what Generation Z is saying. Why did you not believe in me? And I guess I just
heartbreaking.
saying,
That's
if there's
heartbreaking.
anything we can do, it's got to be, we've got to find a way to believe that they can do it.
Oh my gosh, there's nothing to say. That is so heartbreaking. And people, I hope this inspires you to stop in your tracks and look at yourself. Change comes from internal shifting. You're not going to come out of the gate changed listening to this. It's listening and then owning with accountability what you are doing and why, and getting to the root of it and shifting it. And I know, because it's happened in my own life, when you do that and become the role model for who you really want to be and who you want them to be, and not just speak, they're going to do what you do, not just what you say.
That's right.
So, if you can adopt this for yourself, you'll be able to be a stronger, more inspiring leader. Oh, that's so beautiful, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me. Come again soon. Next time you write your next book, which will be in 3 weeks, apparently, since you wrote. You're so prolific. I love it. Everybody check Tim out. Can I just ask one more thing, Tim?
Yes.
How do we have people hire you as a speaker? How can that work? I would love listeners to say, I got to have Tim come and speak at my organization, my school. How does that happen?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking. Our website's the best place to go, and there's a little form you can fill out saying we're interested in having Tim or one of the other speakers. It's growingleaders.com, growingleaders.com. And we'd be honored to help you do whatever you're trying to do.
I think it's life-changing, people. I hope you'll reach out to Tim tomorrow, today, now. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Come back again. And folks, I pray this has touched your heart and helped you become a braver parent, leader, manager, and interactor with people that need to be guided, not guarded. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful week and see you next time.